Thank you, folks. Lawrence Carter-Long has already taken his place behind me. Please welcome the director of the film, Gina Levay. Gina, thank you so much for being here. And along with her, please welcome Shawn Cheshire. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks. Thank you.
Let that go. Let's give it up one more time.
We're getting a standing ovation. Some people are standing.
How y'all doing? So did I. Crying's allowed. That's the thing we all do here. Yeah. Feeling okay?
I feel okay.
All right.
Happy to be here. I also just want to shout out a few people who
Go for it.
were fundamental in the making of this. We have the editor here, Michael Sulba. There he is up there.
Michael.
Yeah, so he spent a good 10 months going through a lot of footage and made it into this, so he's awesome. And also Kathy, who is our kind of ride coordinator who's in the film. She's also here. I don't know where Kathy is.
Where you at, Kathy? Thank you. That's quite a journey. Physically, emotionally, you name it, right? Not a metaphor. So I wanted to get just a little bit into, I'm very curious, I mean, it's easy to see why you wanted to make this film. You meet Shawn. There are stories to tell. You do a mini-series, right?
Could be a mini-series.
Yeah. What's the origin story?
So, so I met Shawn almost 10 years ago, which is bananas. I met her in 2015 when I was doing a job for ESPN, and they were doing a story about female veterans and how they use sports in their post-deployment life. And so when I met her, she just lost her vision about 3 years. And she was training for the Rio Games in 2016, and her story just struck me. But at the time, I didn't know any of the backstory. I just remember her telling me that she had 2 young children when she lost her vision, and I just had my second child, and I just couldn't believe that. And so we just connected, and then 4 years later, I just Googled Shawn, and I was like, what's Shawn up to? And she just finished the rim-to-rim crossing of the Grand Canyon, and I was like, I have to call Shawn. And so I called her, and I was like, remember me? And Shawn, I don't know. She said she did, but anyway. So I said, listen, like, how would you feel if we worked together to tell your story? And she apologized. She said, well, I just quit Team USA. I'm not racing. And I'm like, that's okay. We'll figure it out. So at the time, in 2019, we had no idea what this was and what the film was. I just knew that there was a story there. And over the 5 years that we worked on it, the more we got to know each other and we had connections, the stories just kind of came out. And then she had this idea to ride a single bike across the country, and I said, okay, let's figure out how to do this. And then we kind of interweaved it, and everything just kind of organically evolved into what it was.
Yeah. And Shawn, let me ask, from your perspective, it's one thing to live your truth. It's another thing to live your truth on film with somebody recording it every step of the way. What was that experience like for you?
I mean, there's a huge part of me that didn't get wrapped up in the cameras just because I can't see them. So it's like it wasn't.
So you're just going on about your business.
I mean, she's got some moments on film that I just don't even think about it. I think mostly the formal interviews, I obviously know there's a camera there and recording, but a lot of the other stuff of day-to-day, I actually would forget. She's got a lot of blooper material.
A lot of F-bombs with that, the blooper material?
No, I keep telling her one day I'm going to pay her to create the blooper reel so we can use that. Yeah. It is not easy. I actually struggle listening to it. But it's like coming from child abuse. So you start life and you learn to be very small, very quiet, make no waves, and you kind of contort yourself to never be noticed. And so I think my journey through healing is finding my voice, figuring out how to take as much space up as I want to, not contorting myself for other people, and really trying to just feel good in everything that I do. And so I feel like this is kind of a part of that process. And maybe it will help others. I don't know. I'd like to think I haven't lived through everything I've lived through for nothing.
Yeah, and clearly, this is one way to take what you've experienced, what you've learned through what you've experienced, right? Put it on film. Other people can then maybe have realizations that take them on their own journeys.
Right.
Give them permission.
Right. Well, I think the most important thing to me is I've had so many moments in my life when things were just so bad, going all the way back to a kid and being locked in a closet and thinking, like, this was it. Like, there's no end to this. There's no living different. There's no safety. There's no happiness. And I think that maybe one of the important things for me is to let people know that no matter where you are or what you're going through or what you've been through, like, there's always a way through. I don't know what that is specifically for anyone else, but I just know that I've had those moments, and not being stuck, not feeling stuck is important.
Yeah, and often those things you don't know until it's completed, right?
Yeah.
So the important thing is to start moving,
Going.
start the
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I want to talk about the film specifically. There's some things that cinematically quite striking, and I'm curious to know, one, the process, how that was created. For example, you're biking through freeways, highways, rocks, rain, you name it, right? That's you're doing it, right? It's very somatic, it's very tactile. How do you translate something like that you're feeling and experiencing as a director, Gina? How do you put that up on screen so other people watching the film can try to get a sense of what that's like?
Yeah, so that was actually a huge, that was a really important part of the process for us, and we worked with our two animators on this with Shawn, trying to visualize the non-visual world and how she experiences sound, energy, the vibrations of the semi-trucks, the pressure. What does that look like? Or does that feel like? And then how can we communicate
So walk
that?
me through that process.
So we really asked her a lot of questions. We had, when you go into a new room, like, for instance, the map drawing you saw in the earlier part of the film when she goes into the gym, and she really goes into a room and she has to orient herself, so she draws maps, almost in her head and counts steps. So we asked a lot of questions, like, well, do you, is it just black you see? Like, what's going on? Or how do you see people? So we just asked, like, many, many questions, many Zooms back and forth, and then we would describe what we were trying to do, and she's like, I think, she was agreeing with us, and so, right, it was, or not, and she was like, no, but it was really important to us. I think this whole process, we wanted to be as authentic and true to her experience, because what was, when she was going through America and this beautiful landscape, like the Tetons, for instance, that's not her experience. Her experience going through America on the bike was listening to sound, listening to Jesse Guide, following the music in the back of his bike. She was hyper-focused all the time. And so the only times that she could experience really going through America was when she was off her bike, and we tried to find those moments, the sensory moments, where she could meet people, where she could touch the flowers on the side of the road, where she could go to the horse sanctuary. Those are how she was, she could experience more of America. And so I wanted to have that contrast when people are viewing this, because you kind of lose like sight of the fact that, like, she's not seeing what we're seeing right now. Her experience was totally different on the bike, and just obviously in life, but on the bike.
Yeah, and Shawn, anything you want to add to that?
Well, I think that some of the confusion from a couple of screenings is that the animation aspect is not what I see. I'm actually totally blind, so I don't actually get to see that. But that is my perspective of hearing. And then the color, when it comes to colors, a lot of times it's a feeling and a memory, but it's more of a feeling now. But
Like you feel purple or orange.
like it's like I think when I think of my daughter and my grandson, I think of orange because I know that that's her favorite color and it's warm and it's vibrant and she's a hippie, you know. So that's Brittany. So it's kind of like I associate in some ways, but everything's just really about feeling. It's not about what I see. And what you guys didn't also here is that on the back of the lead bike, there's a speaker and it's constantly playing music. And so the music was my like blind line of sight. So if I could always hear the music, then I knew essentially where to follow. And then everything else that the verbal feedback they were giving me was extra. But if I couldn't hear the music, I stopped. I did actually pull off to the side of the road more than once.
So for you, for sighted people, right, what you would talk about is where's your line of vision? What can you see?
Right.
For you, it was line of sound.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was sort of the accommodation you
Yeah.
made, if you will.
Yeah.
One more question about those sort of things. You know, we're taught, when we're younger, that independence is doing things yourself, right? Doing it, you're doing it, right? Whatever the thing is, you go pick it up, you grab it, you do whatever you want with it, whatever it is. But as I've gotten older and as I've gotten involved in disability community, my definition of independence has changed. My definition now is, it's not necessarily that I have to go and pick the thing up, right? But that I decide when the thing gets picked up. I have a team around me that can go and grab the thing and bring it back to me.
Yeah.
And that when that's picked up, how that's picked up is up to me, right?
That's what I call choice.
Yeah.
That's independence to me is choice. It's not hyper. I've learned that hyper independence was a trauma response for me. Always having to do everything myself, that was trauma. So what I've learned and have evolved to is independence is now choice. Like you said, like I get to choose, be the person that says what's best for me, asking someone for help or not. But it's a choice.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important
Yeah.
distinction
Yes.
to make. So
Yes.
thank you. I think that comes
Yeah.
across very
I
clearly.
relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And by the way, for folks to know, I'm wearing a blue and orange shirt and orange pants. And we did not have a conversation about orange before.
We did not.
Just saying. Things to another thing I'd like to get into just a little bit because it's it's kind of a touchy subject in especially in documentary films, right? Revealing things that are personal and that are difficult and that some might consider traumatizing or re-traumatizing.
Sure.
You made choices to have the conversation with your father there in the end. Talk a little about the thinking before that happened, right? What maybe the expectations were, surprises that may have occurred, or just how that scene kind of came to be. And I'd like to get both your perspectives on that.
Do you want me-
Yeah.
Well, so that scene, we didn't know what to expect. And I think
So was there a plan going
yes,
in?
there was a plan. There was a plan going
during
in.
COVID, when everything was shut down, there was something weird that happened that I couldn't sleep, and I started doing research. I hadn't had any contact with my older sister in years. And I reached out to her and asked her to tell me her story about my dad. And then I asked for her permission, because at that point I was thinking it was just her. I asked for her permission to do some research. So I was calling all the churches, the school districts, like trying to piece things together as to who knew what, and who did, all the people that didn't do anything, only to discover that it was also myself that he molested.
So you're doing the
So I did
investigation.
this research, right? And so remember, I'm a truth seeker.
Yeah.
So it wasn't so much about the confrontation. It was more of like, if my dad died today, And now I know what I know. If I never just said, hey, I know, you don't get to just keep this a secret from everyone forever. That's what was the most important, was a moment of truth of saying, I know what happened, and now you know I know. Because I just felt like that was going to be important to my healing process. That's kind of how I agreed to go and see him, because I needed to do that.
Yeah, and also that scene, I mean, you were there for like 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so we came in. They were actually really open to us filming. They signed releases, everything. And for 2 hours, you were just having a conversation about a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking, like, okay, it's not going to happen today. Like,
I
or
was
maybe it
I was
will.
nervous.
Yeah, I was like, it's not going to happen.
Understand.
And then really almost at the end, you started to talk about it. And so we were there, and it just kind of unfolded. Yeah.
And so not as much, I mean, some degree of confrontation, but it sounds to me like it's not as much confrontation as sort of confirmation and some kind of conclusion.
Right.
Right, to sort of...
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think he was going to admit to anything. I think I knew that going into it, and it wasn't about that for me. And yes, it took me 2 hours to get to that point, but I knew that I came there for a reason, and I wasn't going to leave until I did what I needed to do. And I think I was just kind of feeling it out, because I really wanted to make sure that I honored myself and my sister, and in the process that it wasn't about like a Jerry Springer moment. It was more of a healing and truth. So I was just kind of feeling it out for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we got a little bit of time left. Are there questions from the audience? Show of hands, please. Somebody will come to you with a mic. Yeah. And we use the mics for access reasons. So, yeah, thank you.
You're extraordinary. That was unbelievable. Thank you so much. Okay, questions. I don't even know where to begin. It's not the most important question, but were any of your other siblings, do you feel like they were not validated, like in any way hurt or affected by your dad or anyone else in your family?
I know for sure myself and my older sister.
Right. And did your older sister ever talk to your dad about it?
No.
Right.
I'm the only one that ever got to confront him.
Okay. And now I have a better question. So I know when you lose a sense, your other senses become sharpened, right? You're always compensating for. So of all the sense, so like, I always think there's a silver lining to anything that, happens that's adverse. So tell me about your other senses. Like, would you say, like, if you had to say, like, one thing that, in terms of your senses, auditory or smelling, that's, like, become so much more pronounced and in a good way? Like,
Well, I mean, I think that your primary sense usually becomes your hearing, and that happens naturally. But I also think that, when you really want to hone in on your senses, you have to work at it. Like, you have to be intentional about it, and it's just like kind of perfecting that. At least for me, that's been my experience. And I'd love to say my hearing's my best sense now, but I'm kind of questioning that. I've had 3 ear surgeries since my climb on Everest, and I can't hear anything out of my right ear. And hard of hearing in my left ear. But I feel everything. I feel everything.
And explain it. You feel that sort of in your bones, in your body, your
Everywhere.
emotions?
I feel the energy. I feel the vibrations of movement in people and objects and people's presence and the breath and everything. I feel everything. Yeah.
You feel you're more in tune, kind of?
100%.
Yeah.
It's kind of freaky.
Yeah. Yeah.
People who know me will be like, yeah, she's freaky.
Okay, there's someone here in the front. Oh, we got one back here. Okay, go ahead, please.
Hi. It was an amazing movie, and I also don't know where to begin. I'm a teacher of the visually impaired for like 45 years of children, not adults.
Oh, wow.
And 2 things that I would like to just address with you and ask you. One is, I also have 4 children of my own also, I didn't, and so am I. But I'm a big believer in independence for everybody, for children especially, and including my students, especially my students. So my question for you is, this, as a sighted teacher, teaching children who are not, I'm always trying to encourage them to independence and trying new things and exploring and getting out there and, you know, promoting opportunities for them when I find out about them. But then sometimes I also wonder, like I push a little, they know that, but how, I also stop and say to myself, like, who am I as a sighted person to always sort of just trying to be pushy about that? Like, I try to teach them, but like, what would you say is reasonable? Like, do you have any ideas about, most of my students have gradually lost vision or were born with no vision. I haven't had a student in a long time who lost it later suddenly like you did. But I struggle with that. That's one of the things. I'll just give you the other one, and then you can answer both of them, I hope. I also get, as you did, I was really outraged in the film at the beginning when you had to prove you were blind. That was just, I was so enraged watching it because so many of my students don't present as visual. There's nothing obvious, and there are so many people who don't understand that. And I'm going through that with College Board right now. If anybody here's had that experience, you have to prove how visually impaired you are to get the accommodations you need to take SATs or other exams.
Right.
And it's outrageous to me that they will come back and say, you're not entitled to this because your paperwork doesn't show it. And we're constantly having to do that. Every year I have to go, almost every year. So how do you deal with that kind of? I was watching you during that and you seemed very calm. Were you like screaming and off, you know, like, so those are my questions. And thank you for this.
Yeah. So the first, I'll address the children and independence first. I mean, today, I wonder, are we teaching blind and visually impaired children independence with choice? Because if you think about it, not everybody who's blind is going to be like me and want to push the envelope like I do for whatever reasons. And I have a lot of friends that choose to live in a very different way for other reasons, and that's what feels good to them, and that's okay. And so I think it's important not to put a negative connotation to people who ask for help, because that's what feels safer or better. I mean, I also believe in like pushing the envelope and like, you know, sometimes we need a little kick when it comes to fear is probably what my suggestion would be. But I'd love to meet them. So if you take a postcard, there's an email. If you just contact us, I'd love to come meet your students. Yeah. Okay, that's okay. I travel. So the second question, that was extremely hard. It was humiliating, and because I was new at being blind, I didn't know if there were rules. So, like, I've just had to kind of discover how to be myself in this. I've learned that it's also. I think when it comes to official things, like I get really frustrated because of the. People doubt my vision loss, but in order to race with Team USA, what most people don't think about, and even the athletes that race within Team USA, we all have to get classified every year by at least 3 international doctors. You have to present medical documentation, and if they don't like what they see, they order the test. You have to have those tests. You can't race unless you're classified. So it's not like I was racing and not being classified. Like I was getting classified, but people just doubted it because I'm different. Right? And what do a lot of fear-based, insecure people do when they're confronted with different? They bully and they haze. And it's not because I'm doing something wrong. It's because I'm different and because I'm trying to be my own person, and it makes them uncomfortable. And I really had to learn that through that process of being bullied and hazed by other people who doubted whether I was blind or not. And now today, like, they can go fuck themselves. I don't actually care who doubts me because I live the struggle every day. So I don't have to prove it to you. But when it comes to like the systems, I have my own thought on that. When it comes to the blind and visually impaired, I feel like this is one disability that we're kind of like on the ass end of things when it comes to accommodations. So if you want to talk further, I'd love to have that conversation with you.
Thank you. Let's see. Other questions? I think I'll go with one. Okay.
Just one second. Let me ask one question while she's running up the aisle. In terms of next steps for the film, it was finished when?
It was last year.
Finished last
Yeah.
year. You've been doing the festival circuit.
Doing the
You're at Real
festival
Abilities.
circuit,
What are your hopes and plans for the film, and where can people stay up to date on your progress?
Sure. So we are doing the festival circuit, and this year we're starting an impact tour with the film. And so our hope is to travel and do special screenings with affinity organizations and groups and so we're starting to do that. We just did something in January with Women in Distress in Florida. We're actually going to Northern Arizona University in 2 weeks to do a screening for the students. And so we're hoping that we're going to just reach a lot of people through our impact tour. And then we are going to also do direct-to-audience distribution soon, where people can see it. And to find out more, you can go to blindasfuck.com.
You're spelling it out, or is it a?
No, it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I was psyched that no one took that domain yet. I was like, that can't be available, but it is, and it's ours.
As it should be. Yeah.
So it's there, and also Instagram, blindafdoc. But there's postcards outside on the table, and that has a QR code and anything. If you guys want to host a screening for your schools, and we'll go.
Yeah.
We're ready to go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going? This is Michele Romeo. We spoke at the beginning.
Yes.
As I was mentioning, I'm also blind. I lost my vision when I was 18. I'd like to ask you something, since we share the same experience. What do you think about the people around us that, in a certain way, made our life better, also encouraging us? Because when I was becoming blind, today I feel so lucky that I had a chance to have some people around me that really helped me to move forward in terms of feeling like myself as a son of life, instead of being just the son of my mom. Because I heard some stories of blind people that their families were so overprotective over them, and for example, they were not able to go around by themselves using the cane. And when I was hearing some of the stories and I was becoming blind, I was feeling also very scared. But the encouragement I had from my family and friends really helped me to actually become much more confident. What do you think about this aspect, and how much you had influence from this kind of aspect in your life for your experience?
I'm a tough love kind of girl. I needed a kick in the butt, so many times. I hid in my house for months and months and months, and I definitely needed tough love in the beginning, for people to just really push me out of love out there and just be like, yeah, it's going to be scary, but you can deal with it. You can figure out a way. And back then I felt like they had no empathy and they were kind of mean. But I also realized today how beneficial that was for me to have those experiences. And I often meet with parents of the blind and visually impaired children to try to encourage them not to parent their children on their fears, but to encourage their kids. The only way that they're going to live a big, full life that feels good to them is going to be by them trying things, and that they really need to figure out as an adult and the parent not to let their fears get in the way. So that way these kids can figure out what they want their life to look like. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like unless you're blind or visually impaired, you're never going to get it. So don't say I understand, because I don't really want to hear that, because I'm going to call your bullshit. But I feel like love and support is just so powerful. I don't know what to do with you right now. I don't know what to do for you. Anything. I love you so much. So just tell me what to do. That's powerful right there. And you're not trying to fix anything. You're just showing up and saying, hey, I love you. Give me direction. So to me, that's how I like people to interact with me. And I'm really great at teaching people how to do that. I hope that answers your question. Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a tendency in the world, right, to try to keep things as normal, quote unquote, meaning not disabled, right, as possible. And then people can lose the benefits of, who's going to teach you how to be blind better than another blind person? Been there, done that, right? And so one of the things that I've seen folks encourage is to say, well, if you're losing your sight, becoming blind, get to know other blind people. That might be one thing that you're most resistant to if you're still kind of in the coping stage, but ultimately it can pay dividends. What would you say to something like that?
Yeah, so I agree with what you're saying. I also think like we're not too much different than sighted people, because you deal with fear and you deal with the lack of trust, just like we do. But we're forced into these positions of sometimes like we have to trust without someone earning it first in hopes that they will earn it, and learning that trust is a process. It's not an all or nothing. So, but I feel like sighted people go through that. So I agree with you. I just think the layers go a lot deeper than that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. One more question, I think. Thank you.
Hi, Sean.
Hi.
Thank you for sharing your story. I have two questions. If you had the choice to have your sight back one day, would you take it? And what is that vision that you remember that you would like to see again? Or would you choose to see something else?
Wow. So I guess I have a question for you. If I choose to get my sight back, does that mean I get to still be who I am today, or do I have to go all the way back to who I was when I had the accident and lost my vision? Because that's big for me. That makes a difference.
I think the choice to see as who you are today.
I mean, I would never want to go back to who I was before. I think even as a blind person, all the things I've learned through this process, I really love who I've become. Yeah. And the second part to your question, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I have a huge list of all the things that I wish I had made the time to see when I could see. I have a lot of memory loss with this injury. But I think if I could, I would love to just see the people that are the most present in my life today, I think. I'd like to look in their eyes. I think that would be big for me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. This has been fantastic. Appreciate the phone.
You guys.